we take some time to consider what, get a,
Yesterday we were
we wanted that bride to be able to say something.
they were wondering why the camera wasn't working, that the lens cap was on. I looked up, the lens
That's the
cap
kind
was
of thing
on.
we do.
We might look better.
It's not a lens cap, Lisa. It's a filter. You're always looking through a filter.
There you go. There you go.
Over here. We ready to go? All right. We're rolling? Oh, okay. Welcome, everyone, to our press availability. Availability, I just sometimes have a hard time. Too many syllables. So we welcome our media and welcome those who are watching us over the internet. We appreciate your participation, and if you have any questions, please send us those questions and we'll try to address those today. It's our fourth day on the floor. Mostly bills. We didn't get a lot of debate today.
Committee bills.
Committee bills. So let's just go to any media questions that are there, and if a question comes over the internet, just let us know.
You're going to hear today an executive appropriations. I understand about the impact of the federal tax changes on Utah revenues. What are you anticipating there? And it sounds like there still might be some uncertainty, even though it's been looked at pretty thoroughly. What are you expecting, and what impact is that going to have as you try to put together a budget, knowing there may or may not be more money given what they say today?
We still don't know for sure how the IRS is going to list this pass-through entity income as corporations, partnerships, and LLC, and that determines a lot of what our revenue gain is from the federal reform. The indications that I've gotten, it was not a loss under any scenario. At least that's what's being forecasted. And there'll be a range of revenue that that we can expect depending on where that income or where that credit is going to be listed on the tax form. But we also feel like that in the next few weeks, which may bring us down to a very tight schedule. So I think we've got to move forward with some ideas contingent on getting some more concrete information from Washington. But the IRS has to have their tax tables out here pretty soon, and so we're figuring that potentially we'll have some surety as to what they're going to do potentially in the next couple of weeks. At least we hope. And then we would know for sure. So you're going to, today in EAC, we'll get a report from fiscal analyst, and that it's kind of what we expected to a large degree. And it's what we expected to a large degree if we have the most advantageous for revenue increase here in Utah. And anyway, we'll have that discussion in EAC this afternoon.
Does that help or hurt the budgeting process, having this idea out there that Utah's going to take in more income tax revenue? You're not sure how much.
The budgeting process, it really won't affect us much with the budgeting process. But as far as tax reform, it does affect us.
And how?
Because we see this as an opportunity to, the legislature is motivated to act because there's a windfall of revenue. Because there is a windfall of revenue, there's motivation to do something. And so I believe that you'll see something on the income tax side.
And what are you thinking on the income tax side?
broaden the base and lower the rate. I'd like to see the rate lowered. And I think we can get there. It probably won't be much of a lowering of the rate, but I would love to see us lower the rate.
Because you can't really broaden the income tax base significantly, can you?
Very significantly. Our effective rate today without federal reform is like 3.7, 3.8%. And that's because of all the deductions, exemptions, standard deductions, itemized deductions. Those are the big ones. And if we were to phase those out sooner or do away with those, we could actually lower our rate to 3.8, somewhere in that range. So yeah, there's some significant broadening of the base. It does hit the middle class hard if you do something like that, which would probably be politically impossible to do. But the result of that is you would have it would be a flat tax in its truest sense, and it would be very stable. You would see less volatility in it, and really be a very solid tax policy going forward, not the most favorable political policy.
How would it hurt the middle class?
Because you're taking away deductions for exemptions and standard deductions.
So you would be removing exemption.
We are not. No, we're not suggesting that today. We're talking in hypothetical here. Is there anything we could do to broaden the base? Yeah, those are things we could do to broaden the base. Politically, I believe that's impossible because it's a big hit on the middle class. And in our tax system here in Utah, Brian, for incomes over about $180,000, their exemptions and deductions have been phased out. So when we're broadening the base by taking away exemptions and deductions, it really is on incomes below around $180,000.
So there's 3.8% that you mentioned, from 5 to 3.8. Do you?
That's our effective rate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the effective rate we have today without any kind of federal reform. So if we were to take away all the deductions and go to a flat tax, we could lower the rate to about 3.8 in a revenue neutral policy change.
But that would then remove deductions.
All those deductions would have to go away to get to that.
Unworkable deal.
It's unworkable, yes.
So it would really be a very small
Yes.
adjustment, realistic.
And with the extra revenue, we could actually help hold some of those folks harmless in a rate reduction. And that's why I see it's really once in a couple decade opportunity to potentially do something. But then the other hurdle is then we've got to get the Senate and the governor and the House to agree to something.
We saw how hard that was last year.
Yeah.
You started looking at the nuts and
It's
bolts
not an
of
easy.
accomplishing something.
But I think the motivation will be there because everybody's motivated to do something.
The question is what?
Yes. Well, I believe there'll be a lowering of the rate and the broadening of the base a little bit.
What does broadening of the base mean?
It does mean by taking away some of the deductions and exemptions, some of the other loopholes, if you're dealing with business taxes, that's what the federal reform did. It's in order to help fund the lowering of the rates, the corporate and so forth. They've done away with a lot of loopholes. In 1986, a huge tax reform under Reagan and a Democratic Congress, which was supposed to be revenue neutral, at least that's what the CBO predicted. They really did away with a lot of loopholes. That's when they took that accelerated depreciation out of. We had this very aggressive depreciation schedules, and they did away with that. And that's when we saw the huge real estate depression after that. All the savings and loans went into default across the country. A lot of that was because loans had been made and investments made on all these properties on these very aggressive depreciation schedules. And so, I mean, that's just a little bit of history. But those are the kind of things that, that we would need to look at and as far as broadening the base.
What do you think a realistic number for lowering the rate would be?
With as much, it depends on what we hear from the fiscal analysts today, but I think that it would just getting us below 5, maybe 4.9%.
So very small.
Yeah, it'd be very small.
And when you talk about broadening the base, are you talking about maybe lowering that phase-out number, for example?
Yeah, we could do that. So we could bring that down to, so income phases out by about 150. Now it's not an actual number, 150, 180, but because of the way our formula works, it ends up, depending on your tax, an average among taxpayers. So we could actually move that down a little bit, and that would broaden the base.
So in terms of use taxes and so forth, and there is this transportation bill that was talked about this morning, 114 pages long.
We should have had Senator Harper here if we want to talk about
But who's
that.
counting? And the issue, I mean, the question becomes, what else, if you're going to lower the rate, but we're going to have additional use taxes, is this, without saying so, a tax hike?
Well, and when you increase the rate, let's just admit it. It's a tax hike. Let's not sugarcoat it or try to hide it when you increase the rate. But I throw out this question for everybody. The income tax rate, so you're talking about gas tax, I'm assuming.
Well, that or the transient room tax or, any number of other.
Well, let's just talk about the gas tax in
Yeah.
specifics. So gas tax is an actual number. It's 29 cents. And our income tax is a rate, 5%. So when you increase the gas tax by, let's say, 5 cents and took it to 34 cents, we consider that always a tax increase. But every year, because our income tax is 5%, it goes up with the economy, and so we get extra revenue because of that. But we never call that a tax increase. So you got some semantics there, Brian. And you'll report it whatever how you feel it is, but every year we have revenue increases in a good economy because our other taxes are based on a percentage. If we were to move the gas tax to a percentage, it would go up with the economy or usage and some other things, but we'd never call that a gas tax, but we put it on automatic, so to speak.
But didn't that already happen with the wholesale price and tying it to that rather than?
Yes, we've done that.
Okay,
We did
so there
that.
is some fluctuation.
But what happens is, and last year we changed the law so it kicks in sooner.
Okay. So I guess the bottom line question here is, so if you lower the income tax rate from 5 to 4.9, and then you perhaps index some of these other taxes or raise them, if you will, do we get a net tax reduction or do we get a net tax hike?
That's yet to be seen.
Okay.
Yeah. All those are possibilities.
What do you think about the transient room tax going from, I've heard 3.2% perhaps up to as much as 5%?
Wow. I personally have a struggle with that. We haven't talked about it as a Senate caucus or even in our Senate leadership. That really hasn't. We know that's out there, but we really haven't had some discussions on it. But I really struggle with it because we're focusing on one industry. And good tax policy, not political tax policy, but good tax policy is always on broad-based taxes and not zeroed in on one industry. So that, I just struggle with that concept.
What about the argument, though, that those people that travel to Utah and use our roads probably aren't necessarily buying a lot of gas or whatever, aren't paying a fair share, and this is a way make sure that visitors also contribute to road and transit costs?
We actually used that exact policy question to determine what we wanted to do last year. We made an increase in transient room tax last year.
Your bill, right?
Yeah, my bill raised it, I think it was 37 cents a night or something, not much, but we were able to take that money and put it into an outdoor recreation grant program so that we can then go out and fix some projects, do some projects, and fix some things that needed to be taken care of so that we can better take care of the tourists that are coming. And so that argument is a good one, that they are coming and they ought to pay for some of the things that we're providing for them. And so we did that a little bit last year, but I'm like the president. I would be really opposed to a large increase there unless there was just a really good reason for it. So that's going to be tough for me.
Senator Maine.
I think this is called good government. We have all these options, all these needs, all these different conversations about how to do that. And that's what government's about. All these ideas, where should we go? Collectively, we come together, and at the end of the road, we'll have resolution, or we'll have some answer to that. And I think this is healthy. All this conversation and the good media, well, pinpoint, we can't do that. We can't do that 4 days in, because the options and the journeys and the needs, we don't even know yet. But collectively, that's why we're here, to have all the ideas come together and what ones bubble to the top, and then that's the pill we have to swallow. That's our job.
Anybody on the team know what the ratio is for transient room nights? How many are from people outside of Utah, and how many are people here in Utah? Just going somewhere and staying. My guess is a high percentage is actually Utahns that are going to stay in a hotel, but I don't know what that number is.
Last year, we actually looked at that when we did our increase, and a higher percentage are visitors, folks that come from outside the state. I probably make up about 10% of myself on the rooms here in the state. But a much higher percentage was folks that are coming here.
Senator Maine, weren't you on the transportation task force this year? Oh, okay. No, we should have Harper here to talk about this, but if that's something you want to talk about tomorrow, we'll get Harper in here to help us.
We'll get Senator Harper stuff. But he knows the most about it.
What are your thoughts about the idea of appointing a UTA board, three-member board, rather than the current configuration?
Could I speak to that?
Yes.
I've sat on the UTA board for 2 terms with Senator Bramble, and I have deep knowledge of them, and I've followed them, and I've been a critic of them and a cheerleader, both. I think that the task force was made up of good people, of people that kind of just sat outside. We need to change. We can't just, how many people on the board? There needs to be a fundamental change of that culture of UTA. And I think from this, I applaud this, and I will vote for this. Commissioners, and then have advisory board that comes from all the communities. I think you have a check and balance, and they have to have advice and consent. They should have done that forever ago, and when I was appointed, it should have been in place, because people are vented, and so you have people there, the best we can do with the skills that are needed. Transportation really needs skilled people, and there's so many things involved. And when we appoint people to the advisory board, they're all very good people, but they come and go, and the skills are lost in between, which leaves UTA to be the everything, because they have the skills. And so it's we need a check and balance for them, but we need a whole change.
Are you good with the commission?
I am.
So you would support that
I would.
proposal for 3 appointed members?
Yes, we've done it with the transportation. Senator Adams is back here, and so I think it needs to be that skilled people that are taking care of, because we need vision. I mean, we all want to live between 2 mountains, so we need skilled people that sit apart from us, that we have oversight of that can make independent decisions that are best for transportation. Senator?
Yeah, well, three-member management teams have been used around the state. Davis County has 3 commissioners. I think Weaver County has it. Many of the commissions are 3 members, so you get I think, a better decision-making process rather than one executive with a 3-member event, and you've got 2 that can break a tie, so you've got these differing views. You've got some ability to walk through that. And I think it's actually probably a well thought out idea.
So Senator Maine, you talk about the UTA needs a fundamental change, and yet there seem to be various members of the board that come and go, and in each iteration there also seems to be this pledge that we're going to do better, we're going to clean it up, we're on a different page now, they changed CEO, and it's going to be... So why haven't those promises of change, fundamental change, been realized?
Because the culture's the same. The same as when Mr. Pingree was there, the culture's the same. They just move stuff around. And I've challenged them on bus routes. I know the system, and there's good people there, and those employees are wonderful people, but they get different direction all the time because the board members change. Well, the county's going to appoint somebody. Well, we don't like that, so we'll go to the legislature, appoint people there from the legislature, and so everybody's moving and opinions move. And in transportation, we need forever. We need people cemented there because transportation goes 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and so it's visionary in the decisions they make. We need people that understand transit, that are there and responsible for those decisions, and UTA can run their business and make sure the buses, they can be the structure that makes it all happen. And I think that can all happen. They've changed before, and this will be this is stability for them. So we're not barking at them all the time. This is a stability thing, so they can do what they do best, and that's run the transit lines.
So we have to wrap up. Any other questions you have, you can talk to us individually. One more question?
No, we can do it individually.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone watching on the internet, and we'll be back tomorrow.